Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. This is your weekly update. I want to make sure that I give you the information that you need to be successful in the coming module. The coming module, Module 2, is going to cover basically the next 2 weeks of content. So again, I want to make sure that you have the tools that you need to be successful inside of that space. The very first thing that you're going to be working on is the exact same pattern you were working on in the first module, which is going to be 2.1 and 2.1e. On the one hand, you're going to be getting feedback from your peers. On the other hand, you're going to be getting feedback from me. There's no optional set here. You need to do both of those assignments. You need to make sure that you provide timely feedback to your peers for 2.1e, again, by the due date. Make sure that you make your initial post by that Tuesday, so that's going to be 2 days prior to that. It's going to be November the 4th. November the 4th gives, November the 2nd, not the 4th. November the 2nd gives people time to go and read your post, and then that's a 2-day window for them to be able to respond. Again, when you hand it in to me, I will give you feedback as well on 2.1. You're going to use all that feedback as you construct your 2.2 essay. Now let's talk about what this essay is about. This essay asks you to compare and contrast two things that you are a fan of and to make a choice which one of those two things would be better. Now, this can take on a lot of different forms, so feel free to interpret and approach it as you wish. I've had students write essays before in the past, for example, on movies that they really like, on TV shows that they really like, on books, on video games. One guy wrote his on rope. He really was into creating his own rope, and so he wanted to write it on 2 different kinds of materials for rope. I've had students write it on anime, Japanime, art, sciences, anything that you want, but keep in mind that your overall goal is going to be to make a choice about one that you prefer over the other. Now, a couple of quick things about that. If you scroll down to the rubric, I'm going to go to this one because it's a little bit larger than the other one and it blows up a little bit easier. You can see that you should be building on the content that you have already done in the first module. Again, every single essay in this entire class is going to build on what came before. So the expectations for the very first module are going to play into the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth module as well. So you need to have careful editing. You need to use markers of formality that we've already practiced. You need a clear thesis statement that's going to be, though we could compare and contrast X and Y, X is clearly better than Y because X, Y, Z. Those are the reasons. So you need a clear thesis statement. You need MLA formatting as we practiced it to this point. You need composition strategies. That means that you're going to use the materials inside the module itself. And as a part of that as well, that's going to be your composition, and it's going to blend into techniques as well. But remember, you need more than 5 body paragraphs. That is a basic requirement of all essays in this class. You must also have a clear introduction, clear conclusion, transitions that move your reader from one paragraph to the next, and you must have a clear topic sentence with supporting illustrations inside of each body paragraph. So it's not that you've finished with the very first one. You finished with the first one. Yes, that's a very simple, straightforward essay. But now at this point, you're going to continue to expand that. Now another thing that you may have noticed in here is it mentions patterns, AABB or ABAB. Keep in mind that that is one of the primary ways I'm going to be judging you on this essay. And the reason is because, let's get away from the first module there. The reason is because now we're moving into what are called rhetorical modes, rhetorical strategies. We're going to cover 4 basic ones here inside of this particular module, and then we're going to move to a couple more in the next module as well. In this module, we're going to talk about narration, description, which by the way, you're going to use both of those as you pick your items and talk about them. So if you're talking about rope, for example, you might tell a small story about how rope is created. By the way, that actually leads into a 4th one as well, which is a process, which is a process narrative. So that's telling a story with steps. Description, because you're going to have to describe that item, whether it be a human being, a TV show, a movie, etc., and compare and contrast. So make sure you're reading through this content, but even more importantly, because again, the one central focus of the entire essay is going to be compare and contrast. That is the backbone of this essay. Make sure you come down here to compare and contrast strategies, and that you carefully read through this page. There are 2 different main patterns here. Now you can mix and match the patterns slightly, but never ever reverse your pattern. So you're going to have AABB or ABAB, but you cannot go AABB, BBAA. Now, I know that that can be confusing. Why not? This seems really boring. I just keep saying the same thing over and over in the same patterns. Here's the thing. If you don't understand the topic that the writer is discussing, this makes it very easy for your reader to be able to follow you. You want that predictability, because if you are not predictable, then your reader is not going to be able to follow the topic. As a quick example, I can talk about something that I would imagine that you don't know much about. If I were to say, let's talk about Dark Souls versus Bloodborne, because I guarantee most people don't know about that, but these are video games that I enjoy. Dark Souls starts off with some basic combat stuff. You are allowed to have a shield, you're allowed to have a weapon. Bloodborne, on the other hand, is basic combat stuff, but you're not allowed to have a shield. Instead, the shield is replaced with a gun, and you have to parry using that weapon. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, all the way throughout the entire essay. That way, again, if you're listening and you're thinking, I don't really understand this topic, you're able to follow that all the way throughout, because I've made it super easy for you. I've done the work of organizing it for you, so that way you don't have to track it in your head. That's why AABB, ABAB, rather than AABB, BBAA, AAAA, because now you're confused. You don't know, what's being said. You're seeing that some information is not similar. That's why you need to do it this way. Okay, that's what you're practicing. It's not the subject. The subject, I try to make the subject as easy as possible for you. You're going to speak about something you know about, that you're an expert about. It's the pattern. I want to see that you can use the pattern. And this is quite frankly because, let's go back to the module just for a second and talk about it. Each of the rhetorical modes has its own job. It's like a tool in a toolbox. Narration brings a reader closer to statistics. So if I say, that we went to the moon on less technology than I have here in my cell phone, and that we crammed 3 guys into a capsule that's smaller than the room I'm in right now, and they had to stay in there for a week as they flew to the moon. Now suddenly, that matters more. Like, before you're like, yeah, we went to the moon in the 1960s, big deal. But now you're like, wow, that matters because I've told you a story about it. Narration puts you into the same description puts you into the same relationship with an object that the writer has. So if I say this is a pen, I could describe the pen. I could say, it's a black pen. I could push the button, something comes out, and I can write with that. But if I instead describe it by saying that this is a pen that my grandfather gave me, and because it's a pen that my grandfather gave me, it reminds me of him every single time I look at it. And so when I look at it and I see the little, marks here, the little scuff marks, I always think of, how his fingers handled this and how many checks and things that he signed with this pen. And that is one of the reasons it means as much to me as it does. Now, none of that's true. This is just a pen I have sitting here, but you can see that that's the function of good description. I put you into the same relationship, and now you care a lot more about this pen than you did before. Compare and contrast can be used to make a decision. It can be used in the sciences to make something simpler than it otherwise would be. If I say the Higgs boson particle gives mass to everything in reality, you're like, I don't really know what that means. But if I say the Higgs boson particle is kind of like a professor walking across a room with a bunch of students, and as the professor walks across the room, all the students come and congeal around that professor because they have questions about their paper, that's exactly what the Higgs boson particle does to reality. It gives mass to reality as it passes through. Suddenly, it's much easier for you to understand this topic. So that's what compare and contrast does, and that's why it's so important to be able to practice it. Last and not least, process narration gives you the steps needed to reproduce something or to help your reader to understand that thing, and it does so in the format of a story. Okay, those are your tools in your toolbox. That's what you're going to be working on inside this module. The 2.1 assignment, 2.1e assignment are going to be body paragraphs. As you review your peers' work, as I review your work, you should be looking for those patterns. Has your peer created a pattern and followed that pattern effectively all the way throughout? If not, where did the peer go wrong with the pattern? If you have questions about this, please let me know. I'm here to help. I want to make sure that you're successful with this essay and with these assignments, okay? I'll see you next week.